After making the NCAAs in 2024, can JMU baseball build on that in 2025? It's Locked on Sunbelt.
You are Locked on Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked on Sunbelt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, we have right now two more Sunbelt baseball coaches to get to. Chris Finwood of ODU. We'll get to him next week. We got MarlIn Ikenberry of JMU today. Monday, we'll recap the basketball. So Chris Finwood would probably be on Tuesday, and then we'll get back to the basketball, which I believe is the last regular season week of basketball in the Sun Belt, if my math is correct. All right, so first chance to meet MarlIn Ikenberry, and a couple of things. He's got a twin brother, so that's very cool. He was the catcher. His brother was the pitcher. He's got a cool story about him and another set of twins. Not to mention, he coaches a pair of twins, or a set of twins, right now. He played for Chris Finwood, as it turns out, at VMI. So that is neat. And when JMU went to the NCAA tournament, that was his first trip to the NCAA tournament ever. So that was neat. He relied on one of his assistant coaches who went there with the University of Virginia. So that was cool. And there is a big turnover from last year to this year's team. The middle infield moved on, and some pitching moved on, as well. So it's going to be a little bit of a turnover from 24 to 25, but they have filled in some gaps. So let's get to it. He is the head coach of the JMU Dukes. He is MarlIn Ikenberry, and he is a Locked on Sunbelt. Welcome back to another edition of Locked on Sunbelt, your teams every day. We continue with our 2025 Sunbelt baseball preview. Season is underway, but we appreciate everyone who can make time. And he is the head coach of the JMU Dukes. He is MarlIn Ikenberry. Coach, thanks very much for hopping on. In a good mood today because the Dukes got off the schneid, did get a win on Tuesday after a tough opening series against Florida State. How much of a relief was that just to get that first win out of the way?
It was huge. I mean, just for our guys. I mean, we got beat down Florida State, and they're a really, really good college baseball program, and they're really talented. So it was good to get the first win at home, and obviously it was kind of ironic. The Radford head coach of Radford, was my assistant for 7 seasons here at JMU. Their pitching coach played for me here at JMU. And the third assistant, who was my director of ops last year here at JMU, all on staff. To make it even more incestuous is that the hitting coach played for me at VMI. And so it was good to see those guys. And, when I compete against my friends and stuff, I still want to win the game, and everything's great, but it's just good to kind of compete against friends. And, we give each other tidbits on what we see after the game, and it's just a good homecoming.
Well, we now know how Radford gets on the JMU schedule. That's not a difficult way to figure that out. All right, so just learning, have never met you or even had a conversation with you, so I appreciate your time. For those who don't know, Coach Ikenberry is a twin, has a twin brother. MarlIn Ikenberry played together with him at VMI. They were known as the Fish and the Wizard with their first name. So my parents got our names wrong the whole time. We have David, Seth, and Eric, and they went with MarlIn and MarlIn. Your parents obviously have some outstanding senses of humor. Did they ever mess that up?
No, they didn't. Usually if one of us got in trouble, we both got in trouble. Being a twin is a special bond, and then obviously playing college baseball with them was even more special. And then just the whole aspect of having somebody with you doing all the things you do as a kid and on the baseball field and on the basketball courts and all the things that we did growing up. You always look back at those times as being really special times.
All right. So what position did he play? Because you were a catcher, and there can really only be one of those on a baseball team.
Yeah. He was an outfield pitcher.
Okay. All right. So you were the catcher and he was the pitcher is what you guys grew up as. Okay.
Now I can't remember their names, but there is a stat out there in 1994 where there's a set of twins at Duke that finished the ninth inning. One was a pitcher, one was a catcher, and then my twin brother closed the ninth inning and pitched, and I caught. So we had two sets of twins, pitcher catcher, in the ninth inning on the same team, pitching the same inning. So that was it's a pretty cool unknown.
In the same game?
What's that?
In the same game.
Same game.
That's all. That's awesome. Now the thing that you should have done was switch positions. That's
I think we won that game. I think my brother closed that game. I think he got the save. I think so.
All right. Also interesting. You played for ODU coach Chris Finwood. What's that like? You just talked about all the Radford guys that work for you. What's it like going up against your former coach, Chris Finwood?
Well, we've done it a bunch of times, and we get asked the same questions all the time, and it's the same answers all the time. It's like, hey, it doesn't matter. We've been doing it so much. We know each other so well that you compete and you just want to win. Everybody wants to win in each dugout. But at the end of the game, we give each other hugs and appreciate one another. And I know I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him. He gave me my opportunity to play college baseball. I was recruited in May of my senior year. Didn't have a ton of opportunities. My brother and I didn't have a ton of opportunities. My brother had more opportunities than I did. He was a much better player than I was. But then to go and play at VMI and be a starter for 4 years and have a chance to, develop under him, and then see the way that he developed us. And then my early on coaching career was learning how to take what he gave me and put it on to use to my first coaching jobs when I first started coaching back in the late 90s.
When did you realize you wanted to be a coach?
I say this all the time, my senior year, it was a fall practice. And I was sitting out at shortstop taking ground balls with full catching gear, putting tag plays, getting ground balls. And he kind of walked behind me and we started talking. He's like, what are you going to do next year? I was like, I don't know. He's like, you'd be a great coach. Chris Finwood said this to me. You'd be a great coach. And I thought about it. I'm like, okay. And then when I went into corporate America after I graduated, my dad said, you got to get a paid job. You can't go coach. We paid 4 years of college for you. You're getting a real job. And he said, you got 3 weeks to do it in, get out of the house too. I did corporate America for about a year and a half, and I leaned on Coach Finwood to get back into coaching. And he helped me kind of lead the way with his coach because he went to VCU. He was at VCU as an assistant. And there's a guy named Paul Keys was a head coach. And actually, I was going to be the volunteer assistant at Virginia Commonwealth University with Coach Finwood, with Paul Keys. And then I got very lucky. I went and worked a camp at William & Mary, and the coach pulled me aside and said, hey, I have a paid position. Would you be interested? And I had to go back to Coach Keys and go, hey, what do you think about this? And Coach Keys was like, absolutely, 100%, you got to take it. And that's how my career started.
Right. All right. Well, that's fantastic. We're talking with MarlIn Ikenberry. He's the head coach of the James Madison Dukes. So you've been doing this a long time, and yet last year was the first time that you experienced the NCAA tournament, and it's the first time that maybe the JMU Dukes has done it. Actually, it's been a minute since they have done it. So what was that like waiting for that announcement? Because obviously Southern Miss got the automatic berth. The Cajuns had over 40 wins, and they had won the regular season. So a lot of people thought they were in. What was that like waiting for the announcement that the JMU Dukes were getting an at-large berth?
It was surreal. I mean, you sit there, you've been coaching as long as I have been, and you're knocking on the door of this opportunity, which I had not had that opportunity. And just sitting there and looking around the room and realizing it's about the guys, I actually took a picture of the guys right before they announced it because the stress that was in the room and the seriousness, and then the exhilaration after we got announced was great. And then I kind of took a full day to kind of understand. And I'm like, oh, we got to go. We got to get prepared for these teams. This is a game here in 3 days. We got to get going. So I was real excited, more for our staff and our players. And, we kind of went through a little bit of a roller coaster ride last year, and kind of knowing the last 3 weeks of the season we were knocking on the door was pretty stressful. So, and I try to minimize that stress with our guys, but they knew it. I mean, they're smart kids. They are looking at all the standings and dissecting left, right. So when we came home after the Sun Belt tournament, we had a morning workout that morning, and then went over to the Atlantic Union Bank Center where our basketball arena is, and had a live feed into ESPN. And I'm sitting there thinking, going, well, this can go. This is 50-50 which way this is going. I said, if it goes the other way, I better be prepared how to talk to these guys. So I actually started preparing, like, okay, what if we don't make it? What in the heck am I going to say?
Well, see, that's a good life lesson. That's actually not that difficult of a conversation. It's not an easy conversation to have, but that's one of those good life lessons where you can say, guys, you can do everything right, and yet it doesn't go your way, right? So that's one of those almost cliche life lessons conversations. Not easy, but kind of cliche. But you say it's all good for the guys, but you got to be like, finally, I made it, right? It's not like you had a lot of experience. If you had been there a handful of times, it'd be like, all right, I'm really happy for the guys. But there had to be part of you were like, I'm going to experience a regional. Like this.
Yeah, I just kind of said, here we go.
Yeah.
I'm like, here we go.
All right, let's take a time out. We'll come back, continue our conversation with Coach Ikenberry. He talks about how he went about getting ready for the NCAA tournament last year, his first time there, relying on his assistant coach, and how he goes about using analytics and how it has worked out for his team. We'll do that right after I tell you about FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win or I win, I get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's continue our conversation with MarlIn Ikenberry, the head coach of the JMU Dukes, how he prepared for the NCAA tournament last year and how he goes about using analytics on his team in 2024 and 2025. So then how do you prepare? So your first time, how do you prepare to play 4 teams?
I leaned on my assistant, Mike Roberts, who was on the UVA staff for 4 years. And, really he was a huge benefit in just the preparation and how we practice and where we practice and all the things that come along with the whole lead up to going to a regional, and then preparing for those teams, knowing, okay, well, we're playing South Carolina, we're playing Bryant, we're playing NC State, and just gathering as much information as we could. And he was really beneficial in just, hey, this is what you got to do on day 1, day 2, when we beat, the last day when we beat South Carolina and went on to play NC State, there was a couple hour break we had, and that's something our guys hadn't been used to doing. So I just leaned on him for a lot of different advice on, hey, what's this going to be like? How's this going to go? And then dealing with, all the pomp and circumstances being there too. So, which was great.
Talking to MarlIn Ikenberry, the head coach of the JMU Dukes. He is Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. There is strategy in some regionals, right? Some guys are not going to have their Friday night starter playing maybe of a lesser opponent. What was your strategy going in there? Did you use your Friday night starter in your first game matchup?
Yeah, I think we went in there just kind of saying who's the best matchup for each team that we would play. And then our bullpen was kind of the strength of our season last year. So we had some guys kind of mix and match out of the bullpen. But then as we got into the tournament, we're like, okay, well, this guy's going to go this day. When we did have a spot starter step up, and Hunter Insminger, who was a fifth-year senior that hadn't barely started in his career and threw great against Bryant, probably a career outing for him. And just watching those guys have those type of career outings in that 5-day period was a lot of fun, and just seeing guys do what they did, and then having Donovan Burke do what he did against South Carolina, another fifth-year senior that had paid his dues and really had a career outing against them. And, so we were just kind of mixing and matching based on who we were playing.
All right. So again, he's MarlIn Ikenberry, head coach of the JMU Dukes. He's locked on Sunbelt. What is your philosophy when it comes to scheduling? And I'm disappointed in myself. Harrisonburg, I don't know why I thought it was always south of Virginia. It's actually 7 hours due east of Louisville. I don't know why I thought it was in Southern Virginia, but it's actually due east of Louisville. How do you go about scheduling? What schools? You got to take it with whatever is in driving distance. You can't.
Yeah, usually I like to go on the road.
Yeah,
I like to go on the road the first weekend, just to get our guys out of here. You never know what the weather's going to be preseason wise. It's exciting going to a good place. Like last year, we went to Arkansas. Never been there before. Unbelievable environment for opening day. This year we went to Florida State. Once again, great weather, unbelievable environment for opening day. So I always kind of look around and see southern teams now. Arkansas wasn't really southern. I think it was 40 degrees and rainy last year, and they still had 10,000 fans at the game, so it was still a great environment. But I try to look around and see what's best. Sometimes I'll hop into a tournament down in Charleston. Now that Coastal's in our league, we don't play in those tournaments against each other. But when I was in the CAA here at JMU, we've gone down there. I just like to put our guys in a competitive, really, really big competitive environment opening weekend. And then I get some teams from the Northeast come down and play us. And we're dodging snowstorms right now. So hopefully we can get our weekend series in this weekend, but I think we'll be fine. But last night we had the home opener against Radford, and game time temperatures were, upper 30s, low 40s. And, you just have to battle through that. And each year is different. I'll be honest with you, here in Virginia, each year is different. Last year we had 0 issues with weather. This year we've been battling in the preseason. And that kind of affects how you play opening weekend.
How long does it take you before you realize what you have? We'll just make that an easy question, because you get about a month before conference play.
Yeah, it usually takes 2 or 3 weeks to kind of figure out the lineup, kind of figure out what works matchup wise, what works up, in certain positions. And that's something this year is going to be a little different than years past. It's going to take some time to kind of figure that out, I think, with this team.
Did you have a big turnover from 24 to 25?
We did. We lost, a lot of older arms. We lost the whole entire middle of our field. Our catcher was drafted by the Astros. Our shortstop was a 5th-year senior. Our second baseman went in the transfer portal and ended up at Vanderbilt. And then our center fielder was a 4th rounder as a junior. So we kind of lost the middle of our field. We have still a lot of good pieces back. It's just they don't have the same dudes that are next to them in the lineup that they had last year. So they're still going through some growing pains with the lineup and figuring things out. But, it's still kind of a work in progress.
So does that lend you to be more patient with some guys? Like you said, you got to sounds to me like you want to give some guys some opportunities because you don't have anybody else, so to speak. Yeah,
you are. You give, and I guess really just trying to find the right fit, like who's better in left or who's better in center, who's better at short and third, who's better at first. What's the matchup like with, the at bats and then you gotta manage health too. That's one of the things that is so important this time of year, on pitch counts and innings pitched and when they pitch and when they got hot, when they didn't get hot. And then you manage on our feet, if a game goes in a certain way and I want to take somebody out of the game, I kind of manage that piece as well. So it's a lot of moving parts in the development piece.
Talking to MarlIn Ikenberry, a head coach of JMU Dukes. He is locked on Sunbelt, your teams every day. How do you deal with the portal and NIL?
I think the biggest thing is, we have, I tell people this, we're probably 70-30, 70 high school to 30% transfer portal guys. And, we added, a few guys each year. Last year we added Brendan O'Donnell from Rider University, who became a grad student. This year we have a grad student, Corey Dowdell, who's from Georgia Southern. And then we add in some just different pieces we think are going to fit our lineup and help us, with some depth. And so we do manage it quite a bit. It's not something that we're building our entire team on, but it's just adding pieces at the end of the year, like who we think is going to be a good fit for what we need.
And how do you go about using analytics these days?
Oh, a lot. We're constantly looking at, the TrackMan data. We're constantly looking at, the synergy stuff that we see. We use it a ton when a young man has interest in us, and we can find them on the synergy or on what they have on TrackMan. We use it quite a bit to kind of evaluate.
Can you change someone's bat angle, or how do we do that? Because that's when you say TrackMan. So I actually came from the world of golf a little bit, and that's what they use for TrackMan for launch angle. But that the thing is with that, you can change, the launch angle on the club. That's different. How do you use TrackMan in baseball?
Well, I think the way our offensive development works is we put them in drills to make them fail.
Sure.
And then their natural concept or ability will take over, and it'll make them do what we want them to do. That's kind of the mindset of what we do. So when we use that data, I'm looking more or less like, more on the pitching side for TrackMan than I am on the offensive side. But more importantly, just put them in a system, a blueprint to help them get better. And we've seen it. We've seen really good seasons. We had a young man 2 years ago named Jack Cohn who was a transfer from William & Mary, 5th-year guy, grad student, and he had an unbelievable year for us. Last year, Brent O'Donnell was another one, had an unbelievable year for us. So I think with what they have already done, we just put them in our blueprint and then mold them to what we want them to be and how they succeed. And I use Corey Dowdell as an example. A young man hit his first home run as a JMU Duke last night to give us the lead. And we've been working really hard at some things that he does and helping him, and it's paid off.
Did you give him a big "I told you so" after he did that, or?
I think the whole team did. I think the whole team gave him "I told you so."
So is it easier? You say the guy hit his first home run. Is it easier telling those older guys, here's the analytics, and now you got these high school kids? Have they already been using the analytics? Whereas you and I grew up with, right? We grew up with batting average, home runs, RBIs, and stolen bases, and maybe on base percentage, and that's it.
Yeah, the younger guys know too much stuff. I mean, they know more than me. I mean, I'm like, who cares? Hit the ball in the barrel, or throw more strikes. Those are the things when they start getting dissecting, like tunneling and the release height and the spin and all that stuff. I'm like, all right, listen, as long as you get guys out, I really don't care what that number looks like. Just go get guys out. But there's some specifics that our pitching coach uses in the development world, and our hitting coach uses in the development world that we kind of look at and say this is a good fit for us. And then we do a little bit of everything. We're kind of a hybrid offense in the sense of expect the unexpected. We teach everybody how to bunt. We teach everybody how to hit and run. When we teach the big guy, how to bunt for hits. Because you never know when you're going to need it. I mean, sure. I was very fortunate to coach a first rounder named Chase DeLauder, and we taught Chase how to bunt. Well, of course, he's like, I'm not bunting. One of the best hitters in minor league baseball right now. And I'm like, well, when the whole shift happens, you can lay it down. It may help us win a game. And sure enough, it happened at the end of the year, and he did it, and it came to fruition. But it's not something that we just try to teach them all the basics of the fundamentals of the game.
Well, that's the one thing, and I really haven't discussed this with any of the Sun Belt coaches, but baseball is the one sport where it took 110 years to figure out how to play defense, and they prevented them from playing that defense. Could you imagine if they told Bill Belichick, you can't play a zone defense or blitz because it's against the rules? And finally, someone decided, you know what, we're going to shift, and then the offense couldn't figure it out. Maybe hitting a baseball is just too hard, or they wouldn't bunt. They just wouldn't give in to the bunting. And then they said, nope, we can't do that. And so they just made you play defense where it was originally planted, right? I mean, to me, that's ridiculous, but that's the way they did it.
Yeah, me too. I think you kind of, you make people make adjustments in the game. It's a game, right? It's a game. You're trying to score runs. Exactly. You're trying to win the game. So, like, I don't see the gist of it when you look at it when it's still a game. It's like trying to change like the game of basketball. Like, I mean, it's a game. The game of football. It's a game. So if the team wants to put their entire team on one side of the field, then tell the guy to hit the other side of the field. It's still a game. So that's kind of how I see it. But what do I know?
If you want to give me 10 more hits, right? And what Crash David say? You want to give me one more hit a week? I'm going to go get 10 bunts in a week, or 10 more bunts, one more bunt a week, and I'll hit 300, right? And that gives me a lot more money if I'm playing professionally, right? That's
correct.
That's the way that it is. So that seems like a lot of guys are a little pig-headed when it comes to that. But I'm glad it worked out for your guy when he needed to do it. Let's take one more time out. We'll come back, wrap up our conversation with Coach Ikenberry as he previews the guys on the 2025 team. We'll do that right after this. All right, again, over what do we got? 1,870-ish subscribers. You guys are the best. Again, almost all, well, more than half, not almost all. Almost all would be like 12 out of 14, maybe 11. But 9 out of 14 isn't bad. And we'll see if we get the others. I am off all weekend. So maybe I will say, hey, guys, I'm off this weekend. If the coaches want to come on before a game, after a game, whenever they can squeeze me in, I would love to have them. And then we're going to start reaching out to the football coaches or the football SID guys or ladies, if we can do that, because spring ball is approaching. So we'll start to see if we can get that. And we wanted the new coaches when they got the gigs in December and January. And so now we're rolling into spring ball. One of those things, it is what it is. So we'll see if we can get, new Marshall coach, new Southern Miss coach, new App State coach. See if we can get them on Lockdown Sunbelt. But we appreciate your support. Softball's underway, baseball's underway, and basketball is coming to a climax. And I think that basketball tournament is wide open. I think anybody can win that tournament. I really do. One of a half, well, not anybody, but a half a dozen teams could easily win that tournament. All right. We will wrap it up with Coach Ikenberry right after this. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's wrap up our conversation with the head coach of the James Madison Dukes, MarlIn Ikenberry, talking about his team for 2025. He is MarlIn Ikenberry. He is the head coach of the JMU Dukes. So let's talk about 25. It sounds like it's a little bit of a rebuilding team in 25, coming off of the 24 success. Who are some of the guys that you are counting on to have some good years here in 2025?
Well, I really like our pitching staff a lot. I think it's a really good pitching staff from top to bottom. Probably one of the deepest pitching staffs I've ever coached, talent wise from top to bottom. But on the position player side, we have some guys that have played a lot. I mean, Wyatt Pfeiffer won a Gold Glove last year at third base, Division I ABCA Gold Glove winner at third base. We moved him to shortstop. Ryan Dooley is preseason hitter, DH. Who had big at-bats for us all last year, kind of our spark plug, kind of the guy that gets us going. Coleman Calabrese played a lot at first base last year. He's back at first base, can play third. And then there's a lot of new guys. So, when you look at it, we have some guys that they're older, but they're unproven. They didn't get a lot of experience over the last year or two, and now they're ready to go. Jack Guerrero is one of them. Jack Canizaro is a junior catcher. Kyle Langley was a freshman that played probably more than half the year last year in left field, and he's back in the lineup. And then we have a sophomore that basically was a role player last year starting right, and then center field's a transfer from Birmingham Southern, who's a senior, where Birmingham Southern decided to they canceled the school basically, so he had to find a place to go, and right. we really liked We really liked him a lot. We're trying to figure pieces of the puzzle out and keeping guys healthy. And we got a freshman second baseman who stepped up and had a really good game yesterday. Reese Mooney went 3 for 4 yesterday, but it was kind of fun watching him play at Florida State. He went from the suburbs of Philadelphia playing on some really nice fields to, 7,000 screaming Seminole fans yelling at him and him playing in that environment. So I was excited to see how he reacted to that, but he had a great day yesterday for us, and he had to face one of the best pitchers in the country, and Jamie Arnold on the opening night of his career, and he'll never forget that for the rest of his life.
Sure. All right. So it doesn't sound like it's a big deal going from third to short, but it kind of is, because at third you don't go to your right a whole lot. You're going to your right as the third baseman. It's usually one move, and you either get the ball or you don't. At short, you are moving to your right. You got to go into the hole a little bit and set up and throw. Was that a conversation? He came to you, you went to him, they tried it out, and you see if it worked. Well, how did that conversation go? Because, shortstop, it's basically shortstop, catcher, and center field are your big three defenders. And if you don't have those put down, your defense is going to struggle a little bit. So how did that conversation go, having, your Gold Glove third baseman move to short?
Well, it was a high school shortstop that came in, and he played short for us last year at times when our shortstop had some time off. So we kind of knew the evolution of development. He had done it. And so the biggest thing is just he had done it. And so we're like, okay, we'll put him at shortstop. That's kind of our plan. we have some other guys that we can mix and match there if we feel like he needs to go back to third. But right now he's going to be our shortstop until we make this decision. And really, like you said, it's going to take a couple of weeks to kind of figure out our lineup the way we want to do it.
So you basically said, will you? And he said, yes, please, basically.
Every shortstop that gets moved to another position wants to come back to shortstop.
Absolutely.
It's like a pitcher that goes to the bullpen and he says, hey, we want you to be a starter. He's like, sure, that's what I want to do.
Right. Well, that's called a segue. Talk about, you said you're really happy with the depth of your pitching. You may be relying on the pitching a little bit this year. Who are your weekend starters and who's on the back end?
Jackson Logar is a sophomore that pitched a lot as a freshman last year out of the bullpen. We moved him into our Friday night role. Jaden Kinsler pitched a lot last year as a sophomore, and he's kind of our guy that is going to be in the middle there on Saturday, a left-hander. And then Todd Mizoki, who did a lot for us last year, is going to be our Sunday starter right now. That could shift around. Max Cool's been out of the bullpen this year so far for us. He's kind of our go-to guy last year, kind of our Swiss Army knife guy. He can start, he can close, you take the game over in the sixth inning. He can kind of do a little bit of everything for us. And that's kind of, we felt like early in the year, let's put him in this role, see how he does. Let's see how other guys develop. And then we have some sophomore arms that have done really well for us here the first weekend. Griffin Polly, Griffin Madden, or sophomores that didn't get a pitch a lot last year, but got some experience. And then, we have another senior named Casey Smith, was our midweek starter last year, it was a starter for us last night. So we have some depth and we have some older guys mixed in with unexperienced guys that have good stuff. And so we can mix and match left on left, right on right, guys who can spin a breaking ball, who our long relievers are, short relievers, and then have some competition.
All right, so let's wrap up where we started. Do you ever pull the twin brother prank on your baseball team? Like he shows up acting like you?
We don't look alike. We're fraternal.
You're not identical.
No, we're not identical. So now I do coach an identical twin that his twin brother can do that and has done that to me or tried to do it to me. Casey Smith's brother, Evan. I've never been around a set of twins that look exactly alike. You've got to really bear down to see who's who, but they can pull it off as good as anybody. And I said, don't ever do that to me ever again.
So they got to wait. You can really only do that one time.
Yeah.
Because you're going to laugh at it once.
Yeah.
The second time, you're not going to laugh.
No, they're as identical as I've ever been around identical twins.
That's awesome. All right. He is Coach MarlIn Ikenberry, the head coach of the JMU Dukes. Thanks very much for hopping on. Congratulations on the win over Radford. And hopefully we'll catch up during the middle of the season. Best of luck this year. And thanks for hopping on Locked On Sunbelt. Really appreciate your time.
Dave, thanks for having me. Appreciate you.